Kurtop here, and these are 100 archaeological discoveries that textbooks don't talk about. The aesthetics of tuberculosis. Did you know that modern beauty standards, especially for women, were largely shaped by the tuberculosis epidemic, which was known in the past as consumption? In the 18th and 19th centuries, this disease earned the sad nickname, the romantic disease, because of its effect on the appearance of those who were ill. Consumption gave people pale skin, pronounced cheekbones, a slender figure, and slightly rosy cheeks. Such features came to be considered especially attractive. As a result, they became fashionable, turning into a symbol of refinement and delicate beauty. A thin waist, pale face, wide-set eyes, and slightly rosy cheeks. All of this was associated with the ideal of female beauty. Women began wearing corsets to create a thin waist, using powder to achieve a pale complexion, and even pinching their cheeks for a rosy blush. The aesthetics of sickly beauty became so popular that it was supported in literature and art. These ruins are older than the Egyptian pyramids. Archaeologists found a mysterious complex from the New Stone Age near Prague, which turned out to be older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. The uncovered rondel, built about 7,000 years ago, might have served as a gathering place for local farmers. Its diameter is about 55 meters, which would be enough to fit the Leaning Tower of Pisa inside. Miroslav Kraus, the head of the excavation, claims that the structure belonged to the stroked pottery culture, which existed from 4,900 to 4,400 BC. The first mention of the Wiener Circle appeared in the 1980s when it was partially uncovered during the installation of utilities. Modern excavations made it possible to see it in its entirety and uncovered clay pottery, animal bones, and stone tools. The analysis of organic remains will help to accurately determine the time of construction and whether it can be linked to the nearby Neolithic settlement. The study of the medallion shows that the culture of its builders spread throughout Central Europe, affecting the territories of modern Poland, Germany, and the Czech Republic, where people lived in longhouses that could accommodate up to 30 people. Erotic graffiti. Unique archaeological artifacts were found on the island of Astipaleia in Greece. Some of the oldest erotic carvings and descriptions of intimate relationships between men, dating back to the 5th and 6th centuries BC. This discovery was made by Dr. Andreas Vlahopoulos during a tour with students. The limestone slabs depict male genitalia, and nearby there are inscriptions in ancient Greek. Nikosetim was here riding on Timion, which emphasizes the openness and detail of the depiction of sexual scenes. These findings tell us about the personal, intimate side of the lives of ancient Greeks, about which not much is known. Relationships between men in ancient Greece were widely accepted, but rarely discussed publicly. The images and inscriptions are done in the style of that time, using the Greek alphabet, which makes them an important testimony to the cultural and social life of the era. For 2 millennia, the graffiti has been exposed to the open air, yet it has been surprisingly well preserved, withstanding the effects of weather and erosion. Snail soup. In the 14th century, during the reign of the French King Philip VI, the physician Guido da Vigevano became famous for an unusual discovery. He found an antidote for aconite, one of the most dangerous poisons. Aconite is a perennial plant that contains powerful toxins which affect the heart, muscles, and central nervous system. In the Middle Ages, its poison was widely used by Muslim warriors to poison the Crusaders. But how did a medieval doctor figure out how to create an antidote? One day, Guido noticed slugs calmly eating the leaves of the poisonous aconite without showing any signs of poisoning. He decided that since slugs were able to digest such a poison, they could help in creating a remedy. Inspired by this idea, he collected slugs and boiled them, turning them into a strange medicinal mixture. Before using the medicine on people, Guido first tested it on animals, and then decided to take the risk himself. For the experiment, he poisoned himself with aconite and then drank the slug soup. The brave act did not go without consequences. He vomited 3 times, but soon he felt better. This experience showed that the antidote works and became an example of the courage and perseverance of medieval scientists. A mysterious substance in the coffin. In the northwest of China, in the Xinjiang region, archaeologists made a shocking discovery. In an ancient coffin about 3,600 years old where Bronze Age mummies were found. A mysterious substance was discovered on the neck of one of the women. Today, scientists are sure that this is the oldest cheese in the world. Researchers extracted DNA from this substance and found out that it is kefir cheese made from cows' and goats' milk. This discovery is important for understanding the origin of kefir and the evolution of probiotic bacteria. Xiaomei Fu from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, together with her colleagues, analyzed the bacteria, yeast, and proteins in the sample, which made it possible to identify the ancient cheese. Research shows that kefir cheese was important for people of that time. It may have been placed in the grave as part of burial customs or as food for the afterlife. Interestingly, two types of cheese were found in the coffin, one made from goat's milk, the other from cow's milk. Genetic studies have shown that the microorganisms in the cheese are similar to kefir strains found in East Asia and Tibet. This raises a question about kefir's geographical origin. It was previously believed that kefir originated in the Caucasus, but new data suggests the possibility of a second source in Xinjiang. These results show that kefir spread around the world in different ways, and its history is closely linked to the evolution of human culture. Artificial intelligence has found new geoglyphs. Archaeologists, with the help of artificial intelligence, have discovered 303 new geoglyphs near the Nazca Lines in Peru. These figures, depicting parrots, cats, monkeys, killer whales, and even decapitated heads, have almost doubled the number of known drawings at this mysterious archaeological site, which is about 2,000 years old. A team from Yamagata University in Japan, in collaboration with IBM Research, found previously unknown geoglyphs that are significantly smaller in size than the giant geometric patterns created between 200 and 700 AD. These figures, dating back to 200 BC, provide new information about the transition from the Paracas culture to the Nazca culture, which later created such famous drawings as the hummingbird, the monkey, and the whale. According to archaeologist Masato Sakai, the use of artificial intelligence made it possible to speed up and improve the process of mapping the geoglyphs. Thanks to this approach, the team was able to find 303 new drawings in just 6 months, which is much faster than in the previous nearly 100 years, when 403 figures were discovered. Artificial intelligence helped to recognize small relief geoglyphs that are difficult to notice with the naked eye, as well as to analyze huge amounts of data collected by drones to identify potential sites for new discoveries. Drones and artificial intelligence have brought a quantum leap to the study of geoglyphs. Some of the new drawings are only 3 to 7 meters in size, so they remained unnoticed using traditional research methods. The shadows of those who perished after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States of America in 1945. The survivors were struck by the eerie shadows on the streets and building walls, silhouettes of people, trees, bicycles, and other objects. These imprints became silent witnesses to the final fraction of a second before people's deaths. They resembled photographs more than shadows. As Dr. Michael Hartshorn from the University of New Mexico School of Medicine explained, this effect was caused by the intense light and heat released during the atomic bomb explosion. When an atomic bomb detonates, an incredible amount of energy is released, spreading out in all directions at tremendous speed. Any object standing in the path of this energy acts as a shield, protecting the space behind it. This area remains darkened because the surrounding surface is exposed to intense thermal effects and becomes discolored. As a result, a clear silhouette of the object is formed, as if it were imprinted on the surface. These shadows are like deadly photographs, taken in an instant by the brightest light, capturing the last moments of people's lives. The giant from the USA. At the end of the 19th century, deep in the dense forests of North America, near a small settlement now known as Black Hills, South Dakota, a discovery was made that shocked the scientific world of that time. A local forester, while walking along his usual routes, stumbled upon an unusually large stone protruding from the ground. He was surprised by its size and unusual shape and decided to invite a group of archaeologists from the nearest university. When the archaeologists began the excavation, they discovered that the stone was actually part of a giant stone sarcophagus. Inside, they found well-preserved remains of a person whose height exceeded 3 meters. This discovery sparked much debate among the scholars of that time, some of whom claimed that the find could shed light on the existence of ancient giants, mentioned in the legends and myths of many cultures around the world. Despite significant interest from the scientific community, most of the information about the find and the object itself were lost over time. Only a couple of photographs taken during the excavation and a few entries in the personal diaries of the expedition members have survived to this day. These photographs, although not very clear due to the limited technology of that time, demonstrate the enormous size of the skeleton compared to the people who excavated it. The Black Hills area, rich in history and mysteries, still attracts researchers and adventurers who want to uncover the secrets of ancient civilizations and possibly find lost archaeological treasures. Thus, the story of the archaeological discovery of an giant man from ancient times remains one of the most mysterious and unsolved chapters in the history of archaeology. Creepy customs in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, women's bodies were often set aside for mummification at a later time after death. This was not done for religious reasons, but to reduce the risk of unwanted actions by the attendants. By delaying the embalming process, ancient embalmers tried to make the female body less attractive and thus prevent cases of necrophilia. Since in ancient Egypt great importance was attached to preserving the body for the afterlife, the preservation of the deceased was an extremely important task. In this regard, a measure was developed for women that was considered protective. This custom, although it may seem grim, demonstrates how important ethical and physical protection of the deceased's body was in Egypt for preserving honor and ensuring a peaceful transition to the afterlife. Paths for the dead? Archaeologists from the University of Aberdeen have discovered hundreds of previously unknown prehistoric monuments in Ireland, including 5 Stone Age structures that were used to mark the path of the dead to the afterlife. These discoveries were made in County Wicklow, where the use of LiDAR made it possible to create detailed 3-dimensional models of the landscape. The area where the research was conducted was inhabited from the early Neolithic to the late Bronze Age. Scientists discovered long and narrow structures called cursus, ranging from 150 to 400 meters in length, which are considered rare for Ireland. These structures served as pathways for the dead, guiding souls on their journey to the afterlife. Interestingly, 4 out of 5 cursus are aligned with the cyclical movements of the sun. 2 of them point to the sunrise on the summer solstice, and the other 2 on the day of the autumn equinox. 3 cursus are located near burial complexes, which further supports the theory about their role in funeral processions and the journey of souls to the ancestors. These prehistoric monuments remain some of the most mysterious in Ireland and Great Britain, since no artifacts have been found near them that could provide more clues about their functions. The Beer Quarry Cave. This Roman quarry once served as a hideout for smugglers, and now rare species of bats live here. The beer stone quarried here was an important building material, even back in the Roman era. 2,000 years of quarrying have created a winding system of caves near the village of Beer, which gave its name to this stone. The first Romans arriving in Devon noticed the limestone cliffs at the mouth of the River Exe. They discovered veins of fine-grained limestone and began to quarry it. When the surface deposits were exhausted, the Romans dug deeper into the rocks, extracting the stone with pickaxes and wooden wedges. This stone was used for the construction of important public buildings. The stone was transported to the river and sent away by boat. After the Romans left, the quarries were used by the Saxons. Their workings were characterized by sharp, square corners, unlike the Romans' round ones. Beer stone was easy to work with, but it hardened in the air, becoming stronger. It was cut on site and used for the construction of buildings such as Windsor Castle, London Bridge, and Westminster Abbey. The stone was also used in the construction of Christ Church Cathedral in St. Louis, USA. After the Protestant Reformation, Catholics held secret masses in these caves. In the early 19th century, smugglers, including Jack Rettenbury, used the caves to hide contraband brought in by sea vessels. Stone quarrying stopped in the early 20th century when a new site was discovered. Now these caves are of special scientific interest because of rare bats. Animal trials. In medieval Europe, the practice of putting animals on trial was surprisingly common. In countries like France, Switzerland, and Italy, Animals were held accountable for crimes against people, God, or someone's property. Pigs, rats, grasshoppers, and sometimes even snails ended up in the dock. Such trials were divided into secular and ecclesiastical. In secular courts, animals were tried for attacking people, while ecclesiastical courts dealt with pests, such as locusts or rats, that destroyed crops. Pests could be excommunicated from the church or banished from the territory. One of the most famous examples was the Savigny trial in a suburb of Paris in 1457. At that time, a sow and her 6 piglets attacked a 5-year-old boy, and he died. The animals were caught, isolated in a pen, and brought to trial. After lengthy proceedings, the sow was found guilty and sentenced to death. The piglets were acquitted, as there was no evidence of their involvement in the attack. I think this could make a good plot for another Netflix series. An unknown work by Mozart. A work by the famous composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, which had been kept in the libraries of Leipzig for more than 100 years, was recently discovered during work on a new edition of the Köchel catalog. This catalog is a reference guide to Mozart's works and is compiled by the International Mozarteum Foundation in Salzburg. The discovered serenade, titled Serenade XC, with a duration of 12 minutes, was probably written in the mid or late 1760s. When Mozart was between 10 and 13 years old, Ulrich Leisinger, the head of research at the foundation, noted that the style of the piece indicates an early stage in the composer's work, adding that at 17 years old, he would not have written such music. Although authorship cannot be proven 100%, according to Leisinger, the similarity to other works by Mozart from that time and the presence of his name on the sheet music indicate authenticity. The discovered composition was first presented at the International Mozarteum Foundation in Salzburg, and it was performed at the Leipzig Opera. A winged demon on an ancient seal. In Israel, 2 2,700-year-old stone seals were found with an image of a winged figure and inscriptions in ancient Hebrew. The find was made near the southern wall of the Temple Mount and dates back to the period of the First Temple. The seal is made of black stone and is decorated with an inscription which translates as "For Yehuezer, son of Hashayahu." Archaeologists noted that this is one of the most beautiful seals found in Jerusalem. The seal depicts a winged figure dressed in a striped shirt and a headdress. According to Assyriologist Dr. Filip Vukasevich, such winged demons are found in Neo-Assyrian art of the 9th to 7th centuries BC and served as protective magical figures. The seal probably belonged to a high-ranking official of the Kingdom of Judah, serving as both an amulet and a symbol of authority. It reflects not only Assyrian influence, but also the owner's connection to the local Judean culture. How thick is the sand layer in the desert? When you hear the word desert, you imagine huge sand dunes stretching to the horizon. But a desert is not just sand under the hot sun. It's a world full of mysteries and unexplored corners, open for exploration. Studying deserts is not an easy task because of the extreme climate and sometimes complicated political situation. But the desert holds much more than it seems at first glance. Besides sand, there are also rocky, gravelly, mixed, and salt deserts, as well as Arctic deserts covered with ice and snow. All of them together cover about 20% of the surface of our planet. The depth of the sand cover in deserts and what lies beneath this golden sea is of particular interest. Beneath the layer of sand, there is always a stone foundation. The depth of the sand varies depending on the location and various external factors. Measuring it is a complex act. Sand dunes can move at a speed of up to 10 meters per year, which makes studying these sandy seas even more difficult. In the Sahara, the average sand depth reaches 150 meters, and in the Namib Desert, some dunes rise up to 400 meters. There is more than just rocks hidden beneath the desert sands. In the Sahara, for example, there are reserves of oil, gas, and even fresh water, accessible only to the bravest explorers. Scientists have created maps of groundwater about 75 meters below the surface, a real treasure in the desert's arid conditions. Stonehenge doesn't even come close. The stone circles of Gambela, located in present-day Senegal and Gambia, are one of the most mysterious and impressive archaeological discoveries in West Africa. These megalithic structures, consisting of thousands of individual stones, are arranged in circles and lines covering more than 30,000 square kilometers. They are known as the megalithic complexes of Siningane and Vashu in Senegal, as well as Kerbach and Vanyak in Gambia. The age of these stone circles is estimated to be about 1,500 years, although some of them may be significantly older, suggesting prolonged use and importance of these sites for the local ancient cultures. Each stone circle consists of massive pillars with heights ranging from 1 to 2.5 meters, and the diameter of the circles can reach up to 8 meters. On average, each stone weighs about 7 tons. The complex includes more than 1,700 individual circles, making it one of the largest collections of megaliths in the world. These stone circles are often compared to Stonehenge because of their mysterious origins and unknown purpose. However, Stonehenge doesn't even come close to the scale of the stone circles of Gambla. The purpose of this gigantic structure still remains a subject of discussion and research. One of the most popular theories is their ritual and ceremonial significance. The stone circles could have served as places for religious ceremonies, gatherings, and burials. Indeed, burial mounds have been found near some of the circles, which supports the idea of funerary rituals. In some places, artifacts such as pottery and iron tools have been found, which could have been used in rituals or as offerings. Some scholars believe that the arrangement of the stones is connected to observations of the movement of the sun, moon, and stars, and could have been used to determine calendar cycles or to hold important agricultural festivals. The ancient builders used local materials, such as laterite stones, but how they were worked and erected is still unclear. On February 10, 1840, Queen Victoria married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. At their wedding, an impressive cake weighing about 136 kilograms was served. The three-tiered treat was decorated with miniature figures of the bride and groom in Roman attire, as well as an exquisite entourage made from refined sugar, which at that time was truly a luxurious and rare product. Inside, the cake was generously soaked with alcohol and filled with lemon, elderberry sugar, and dried fruits. However, a problem arose. Victoria was on a diet, and the guests didn't seem hungry enough to tackle a cake weighing more than 100 kilograms. Therefore, at the end of the celebration, the Queen ordered the cake to be cut into small pieces, which were then placed in tin boxes and given to friends, relatives, and other honored guests. Thus, the tradition of giving guests pieces of the wedding cake was born, a tradition that, even at the royal court, took the form of a keepsake gift. Many of the recipients of these souvenirs decided not to eat them, since it was a valuable gift from the Queen herself. Some slices remained untouched and have been preserved to this day. Today, pieces of Victoria's wedding cake are true relics. Several of them are in the Royal Trust collection, and one of these pieces was sold at auction in 2016 for £1,500 sterling. If that seems like a hefty sum, then it's worth noting that in 1998, a piece of King Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson's wedding cake, dated 1937, was sold at a Sotheby's auction for $29,900. But what's surprising is that Victoria's wedding cake has remained edible to this day thanks to its high alcohol content. Theoretically, it could still be tasted today, although this will most likely remain just a legend. 3. The 3,000-year-old tomb of a priest. Archaeologists from Japan and Peru recently discovered a 3,000-year-old priest's tomb in Cajamarca, Peru. It is older than the pyramids in Egypt. The ancient burial mound was located deep in the Andes, far from the bustling cities. Inside the tomb, there are two stunning ceramic seals. One depicts a human face and the other shows a fearsome jaguar. And believe me, to reach this treasure, archaeologists had to go through 6 layers of earth and ash. This remarkable priest was one of the first spiritual leaders in the Andes, and according to scientists, managed the temples. This team of scientists has been digging in the Andes for 18 years, and every time they discover something new and exciting. The discovery of Noah's Ark. In 1959, Captain Ilkan Darupanar while working on aerial photography for NATO in Turkey, made an unexpected discovery. At an altitude of 2,000 meters, he noticed unusual geological formations, resembling the outlines of a giant ship. This discovery sparked a lot of debate and speculation that the remains found could be Noah's Ark. The discovery attracted the attention of both scientists and adventurers. Despite numerous expeditions and research in the following years, definitive evidence confirming the biblical story of the Ark has yet to be found. However, this region continues to be a subject of scientific interest. To support the possibility of real events like the biblical flood, geological studies in the Black Sea region have shown that about 6,000 years ago, a catastrophic flooding did indeed occur. This could have been caused by the massive melting of glaciers, which led to a significant rise in sea level. In addition, clay tablets dating from the same period were found in Mesopotamia. One of these tablets describes the story of the Great Flood and the rescue of various species of animals on a ship, which has noticeable parallels with the story of Noah from the Bible. These findings indicate that the themes of global catastrophes and rescue aboard a ship may have deep historical roots, permeating many cultures and civilizations. Infants in the sewer. In 1988 in Ashkelon in southern Israel, archaeologists made a shocking discovery. Under the baths, in the sewer dating back to the late Roman and early Byzantine period, the skeletons of about 100 newborns were discovered. Upon investigation, it became clear that the infants had lived less than 3 days, and their remains showed no signs of violence or trauma. Initially, scientists assumed that these were girls, since in many societies of that time there was a practice of getting rid of newborn females. However, further analysis showed that among these remains there were both boys and girls. One possible reason for the death of the infants could have been the activities of women working in the baths. It is likely that the children were abandoned by prostitutes who, being forced to live such a life, could not afford to take care of infants. The story from Ashkelon sheds light on the grim realities of the past, showing how horrifying the times were, to the point that women had to get rid of their newborn children. A 270-million-year-old skull in the collection of the National Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian Institution, a fossilized skull was discovered that belonged to an ancient ancestor of amphibians. Its approximate age is 270 million years. Scientists described the skull as a new species of proto-amphibian, named Kermitopus gratus in honor of the famous Muppet frog, Kermit. One of the students at George Washington University emphasized the importance of using popular names to draw attention to scientific discoveries. He noted that the name Kermit is perfect for describing an ancient amphibian, linking it to modern representatives of this class of animals. The skull was found by paleontologist Nicholas Houghton during field research in Texas in an area known as the Red Beds. This area, dating back to the early Permian period, contains many fossils, including remains of ancient reptiles and amphibians. After its discovery in 1984, the skull remained in museum collections for decades until it was studied by Arjan Mann, who singled it out from other specimens for detailed examination. The joint efforts of researchers helped establish that the discovered skull belongs to a new genus of ancient amphibians. The mystery of Archaeum. Archaeum, often called the Russian Stonehenge, is one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in Russia. Located in the steppes of the southern Urals, this megalithic complex impresses with its size and precision of layout, making it similar to the famous Stonehenge in Great Britain, both in its astronomical functions and in its geographic latitude. Archaeum is essentially a circular fortress with 2 concentric rings of walls and streets connecting dwellings, which were built with the ancient people's astronomical knowledge in mind. Studies have shown that the buildings in Archaeum were constructed in such a way as to observe 18 astronomical events, including solstices and equinoxes. This shows the advanced astronomical knowledge of the people living here during the Bronze Age. Archaeum not only attracts archaeologists, but is also a subject of interest for researchers of anomalous phenomena. Unusual magnetic anomalies are recorded in the area of the complex, which sometimes affect the operation of electronic devices. These anomalies, as well as a number of other unexplained phenomena, give rise to various theories, including assumptions that Archaeum could have been used or even created by extraterrestrial civilizations. In addition, the unique architecture and complex water supply system indicate a high level of social organization and engineering skill among its builders. These qualities make Archaeum one of the key Bronze Age monuments in Eurasia. Pharaoh Piopi II Neferkari, who ruled Egypt during the 6th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, ascended the throne in 2278 BC when he was only 6 years old. The young ruler's guardian was his mother, who helped him govern the country during the early stages of his reign. Over time, Piopi proved to be quite an unusual person, and chronicles have preserved evidence of his unusual health issues. One of the most famous examples is his demand that slaves cover themselves with honey, so that flies would be attracted to them and not bother the pharaoh himself. This invention may seem absurd, but it shows how Piopi tried to solve even the simplest inconveniences. Meanwhile, the fly in ancient Egypt became a symbol of resilience and bravery, and golden awards in the shape of flies were given to soldiers for special merits. Such ornaments can essentially be considered the first medal of honor in history. There is also a preserved letter from Pharaoh Piopi II to Harkuf, the governor of Aswan, who led an expedition to Nubia. In it, the pharaoh strongly requested that a dancing pygmy be brought to the court for entertainment. This letter gives us an idea of his interests and how Egyptian rulers used foreigners brought from abroad for court entertainment. The reign of Piopi II was one of the longest in history. He reigned for about 94 years, according to other sources, 64 years, and possibly lived to be 100, becoming one of the most memorable pharaohs of ancient Egypt. A package 4,000 years old. Staff at the National Museum of Ireland received unique artifacts from the Bronze Age. An anonymous sender mailed 2 axes, each over 4,000 years old. Experts noted that the axes were carefully packed in a box with a foam lining. The sender also included a letter stating that the axes were found using a metal detector in the Westmeath area. The museum contacted the sender requesting more information about the find, especially the exact location where it was discovered, in order to understand the historical context. The axes date back to 2150 to 2000 BC, which coincides with the beginning of the Bronze Age. They may be among the first metal axes in Ireland made of copper, possibly mined on Ross Island. The object itself is valuable, but the context is also important. Artifacts were often buried in places associated with rituals. The museum hopes that the sender will get in touch to provide additional information. The dentures of the first president of the United States. The common myth that George Washington's dentures were made of wood is actually not true. His dentures were made from various materials, including teeth taken from his slaves, as well as hippopotamus ivory and metals such as gold and lead. This fact was often hidden or distorted in historical sources, probably because of the ethical issues related to using the teeth of slaves. Washington suffered from serious dental problems throughout his life, and his personal records show that he bought teeth from slaves to use in his dentures. Such a practice in the 18th century, although common, still casts a dark shadow over the image of the first president of the United States. These dentures, with their gruesome makeup and very limited comfort, placed major constraints on Washington, and he experienced constant discomfort, which can be seen in his facial expression in many portraits. Giant jade dragon. Chinese archaeologists have discovered the largest jade dragon of the Hongshan Neolithic culture. The artifact was found in the Yuan Baoshan stone tomb located in Aohan Banner, Inner Mongolia. The jade dragon measures 15.8 centimeters in length, 9.5 centimeters in width, and 3 centimeters in thickness, and is a unique find with no analogs in this region. The excavations also revealed architectural remains, fragments of human bones, tombs, hearths, and various artifacts, including jade and painted ceramic items. Among them were tripod bowls and basins. Carbon-14 dating showed that the artifact belongs to the late Hongshan culture and was created more than 5,000 years ago. The oldest alphabet has been deciphered. Since 1964, archaeologists have discovered 15 tablets with mysterious carvings at the site of an ancient settlement in Jordan. A recent analysis showed that the tablets were probably created by the Canaanites, an ancient Semitic people who lived in the territory of modern Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, as well as parts of Jordan and Syria. Research has revealed that the tablets contain 29 unique symbols, written from left to right. These symbols include dots, vertical lines, and abstract drawings. Scientists believe that the inscriptions represent ritual sayings related to a religious temple. Some signs, such as a symbol resembling an eye, have been identified as ayin, which means eye in Hebrew. These parallels have helped to begin the decipherment. The Canaanites inhabited Canaan from 3,500 to 1,200 BC until they were conquered by the Israelite tribes. They are mentioned in the Old Testament. Interestingly, the Canaanite alphabet became the basis for the Phoenician script, which in turn influenced the Greek and Latin alphabets. Syphilitic zombies. The origin of syphilis remains controversial, and scientists have put forward two main theories. The Columbian theory claims that the disease was brought to Europe by Christopher Columbus's sailors after returning from the New World in 1493. The other version, the pre-Columbian theory, is based on mentions of symptoms similar to syphilis in ancient Greek texts, which suggests its existence long before Columbus's expedition. The first recorded mention of a syphilis outbreak in Europe appeared in 1495, when French soldiers returned from their campaign in Naples. The disease spread rapidly and took on terrifying forms. Syphilis affects the skin and mucous membranes, leading to the formation of ulcers and tissue destruction. In the later stages, those infected suffered such severe skin lesions that their faces and limbs became unrecognizable. The flesh literally decayed, and those infected looked like real living corpses. These syphilitic zombies wandered the streets, leaving behind a trail of decaying skin. They were in unbearable pain and could barely walk. Their movements and appearance reminded us of modern zombies from horror movies. The disease not only destroyed them physically, but also isolated them from society, leaving them alone and suffering. The metal door inside the rock. Since the beginning of the 21st century, numerous stories and rumors have surrounded the construction of the Baikal-Amur main line in Russia, some of which surprisingly have a real basis. While work on this railway was underway, workers encountered anomalies and paranormal phenomena, causing many to call the main line haunted. Among these stories, special attention is given to tales about the ghost of the railway, a train passing by without a sound, witnessed by both construction workers and local residents. According to scientists, the origin of these stories may be connected to events in the 1940s, when during an uprising, prisoners hijacked a steam locomotive in an attempt to escape. Mysteries have also surrounded the tunnels of the Baikal-Amur main line, particularly the Severomuysky tunnel, whose construction lasted more than 25 years due to unexpected surprises that presented new challenges for the builders. The mysteries associated with these structures, including the story of the white shaman who foretells disasters, only add to the aura of mystique surrounding the railway. At every step, the builders faced new obstacles that required immediate solutions. One of the most intriguing moments was the discovery of a metal door in one of the tunnel sections, after an underground spring broke through, which led to the death of 30 people. The door, which became a real mystery, remained an unsolved mystery, just like the strange sounds coming from underground that resembled knocking. Attempts to explain these phenomena range from assumptions about a high concentration of radon gas, which can cause auditory hallucinations, to stories about evil forces dwelling in the depths of the tunnel. Adding further intrigue is the Devil's Bridge, a part of the same railway line, famous for its mysteries and myths. Despite all the technical and mystical challenges, the Severomuysky Tunnel and the Devil's Bridge remain the most important structures of the BAM, and the stories associated with them continue to captivate the minds of both specialists and travelers. Answers to many questions have yet to be found, and each new mystery only deepens the enigma of these places. A horrifying social experiment. In the 1960s, there was a shocking practice in Germany of placing orphans and homeless children in the care of people with pedophilic tendencies. This happened as part of a supported theory that such adults would show special care and attention to the children. It was assumed that these people's desire for close interaction would help create a warm and caring environment for the children. This practice, known as the Kentler experiment, was initiated by psychologist Helmut Kentler and was mainly implemented in West Berlin. Kentler claimed that children in these families received more emotional support and care. The experiment was a government initiative and continued for decades, despite numerous signs of harm to the children. Only many years later did this program face serious criticism, and the victims began to receive compensation. Log coffin culture. An ancient legacy left by a culture that flourished in the northwest of Thailand surprises archaeologists with its unique burial customs. About 40 burial sites where people found their final rest in teak coffins decorated with intricate patterns testify to a highly developed Iron Age culture. Researchers from Germany and Thailand analyzed the DNA of ancient people to uncover the connections between different communities. Between 2300 and 1000 BC, a mysterious culture flourished in the province of Mae Hong Son. DNA analysis of 33 ancient people from 5 coffins showed that genetic kinship played a key role in burial traditions, highlighting the importance of family ties in the choice of burial sites. This study was a breakthrough in Southeast Asian archaeology, presenting the first analysis of genetic and cultural connections at the level of ancient communities. Despite the challenges of DNA preservation in the tropical climate, scientists identified 2 main genetic lineages associated with agriculture, indicating deep connections with the Yangtze and Yellow River valleys in China. The giant stone heads of La Venta, found in present-day Mexico, are among the most mysterious artifacts of the ancient Olmec civilization. These massive sculptures, created about 3,000 years ago, are monolithic heads carved from large basalt stones. The height of the heads ranges from 1.5 to 3.5 meters, and their weight reaches several tons. A total of 4 such heads were discovered at La Venta, each of which has unique facial features and is distinguished by the characteristic Olmec carving style. The Olmecs, one of the earliest and most mysterious civilizations of Central America, lived in the territory of what is now the state of Tabasco in Mexico. The facial features carved on the heads are often interpreted as African, which has given rise to many hypotheses and theories about possible cultural contacts between the Olmecs and other continents. However, there is no direct evidence of such contacts, and most scholars believe that these facial features were characteristic of the Olmec culture itself. Carving basalt requires significant effort and skill, especially considering the organic tools available at that time. The Olmecs apparently used primitive tools made of stone and wood, which makes their achievements in sculpture even more impressive. How they were able to achieve such a degree of detail and expressiveness remains a mystery. Another question arises regarding the transportation of these massive stones. The basalt quarry is located in the Tuxtla Mountains, about 80 kilometers from La Venta. This means that ancient craftsmen had to move huge stone blocks through dense jungles and rugged terrain. The meaning and purpose of these stone heads also remain a subject of debate among scholars. Some researchers believe that the heads depicted rulers or important members of society, possibly a warrior or a priest, which emphasize their status and significance. The expressive faces and distinct headdresses carved on the heads likely symbolized power.
Символизировать силу и власть.
The story of Minnie Dean. In the 1890s, in the city of Invercargill, New Zealand, a woman named Minnie Dean was engaged in so-called baby farming. She took in orphan children, calling herself their foster mother. Minnie actively looked for babies by placing ads in newspapers, and soon the number of children in her care began to raise suspicions. It came to light that she tried to ensure their lives, which alarmed local authorities. The cops started to keep a close eye on Dean, as rumors began to circulate about the disappearance of children. The first alarming incident happened in 1893, when a 6-month-old baby went missing. Then 2 years later, a newborn girl disappeared. Suspicions mounted as police kept a close watch on Minnie. On the evening of May 2, 1895, a reporter noticed her boarding a train with a baby and a hat box. But when she returned, she only had the hat box, which was much heavier than usual, and the baby was gone. Minnie later explained that the baby had died during the night and in a panic, she put the body in the box so she could get home quietly. However, the police, called by the reporter, searched her property. In Minnie Dean's garden, they found the bodies of several children, including a girl who had been buried very recently. This became the decisive evidence, and Minnie was brought to trial. She was found guilty and sentenced to death. The execution took place on August 12, 1895, making her the only woman to be executed in New Zealand. Amulet from space. Turkish archaeologists have discovered an amulet made of meteoritic iron that is 4,700 years old. This artifact, found in an early Bronze Age burial in Asia Minor, is considered the oldest such find in the region, with a precisely established date. The amulet was discovered in the Kesik Cemetery, located in the southwest of Turkey. The item was found in a pythos, a large clay vessel used for burial. To date, the earliest recognized artifacts made from meteoritic iron are beads from Egypt, found near the settlement of El Gürtse, and dated to 3,300 BC. There are also finds from the Orenburg region in Russia, where archaeologists discovered a knife, a chisel, and an adze in a Yamnaya culture burial mound, dating to 2,700 BC. During the excavations at Kesik. In addition to the amulet, burials with rich grave goods were found, indicating the high status of the deceased. Analyses confirmed that the iron of the amulet is indeed of meteoritic origin, which further increases its historical and scientific value. A diver found an extremely rare treasure. Back in 1715-11, ships left the port of Cuba and set sail for Europe with treasures. However, a hurricane off the east coast of Florida sank the ships, and 1,500 sailors died. Hidge Gietschlag, his business partner Mike Penninger, as well as Nika Melio and Karina Leah, discovered more than 200 silver coins on the seafloor. The value of the find, depending on the condition of the coins, can range from $12,000 to $130,000. When exploring sunken ships, the team often finds ceramic and metal fragments, but coins are a real rarity. Silver coins can become corroded after hundreds of years in the water, but piastres are easy to recognize. The treasures were found among the wreckage of one of the two flagships. Gietschlag thinks the coins may have been minted in Mexico City, and the hoard hasn't been appraised yet. Most will go to a museum, with only a small portion for sale. Rock paintings in Somaliland. The Lasgil Cave Painting Complex, located in Somaliland, is one of the most impressive and mysterious archaeological sites in Africa. These rock paintings, which are about 9,000 years old, demonstrate a high level of artistic skill and detail, making them unique among other similar sites. The paintings are located in a series of caves and shelters, protected from the weather, which has allowed them to be well preserved to this day. Scenes from the daily life of ancient people are depicted on the cave walls, including hunting scenes, rituals, and worship, as well as images of domestic animals such as cattle. Particular attention is drawn to the depiction of anthropomorphic figures, created with striking realism and vivid colors. The figures of people and animals are decorated with various patterns, which suggest the complex social and religious beliefs of ancient artists. Some images include scenes with people holding hands or performing ritual movements, which may indicate religious or cultural ceremonies. The images of cows with richly decorated horns are also noteworthy, which may indicate the importance of cattle herding in the lives of the ancient inhabitants of the region. Sacrifice under the pyramid in Shimao, an ancient fortified Bronze Age settlement located along the Great Wall of China. Archaeologists have discovered striking evidence of ancient rituals. Under the stepped pyramid located in the center of this settlement, 6 pits filled with skulls were found. In these ritual pits were the remains of about 80 young women, which indicates human sacrifices. Sacrifices in ancient China were indeed a common ritual and were performed for various reasons. For example, as offering to the river god Hebo, or as part of burial rituals, where slaves or concubines were sent to the afterlife together with their masters. However, the exact purpose of sacrificing the girls from Ishimau still remains a mystery for scholars. New mysteries of the St. Belek slab. Scientists have been actively studying the ancient St. Belek stone slab, which is 4,000 years old, since its discovery in 2014 in a French burial mound. In 2021, It was recognized as the oldest map of Europe. Researchers believe that the slab may contain clues to treasures based on the drawings and symbols carved into it. This unique slate artifact was first discovered in Finistère, in western France in 1900, but the mystery of the slab remained unsolved, and it lay in the castle for more than a century until scientists began studying it again. The slab, measuring 2 by 1.5 meters, is believed by experts to be a map of the Brittany region. Rivers, mountains, and other natural features are engraved on it. Interestingly, the indentations on the slab may indicate ancient settlements or ancient Europe. A comparison of the drawings with modern maps of Brittany revealed a striking 80% match. The study of this ancient map continues. It covers an area of 30 by 21 kilometers, and scientists may need up to 15 years to fully study it. Excavations near the location of the slab have already yielded new fragments that were used in the construction of ancient tombs. The legacy of ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt, being one of the earliest and longest-lasting civilizations in human history, has left an indelible mark on the cultural and scientific landscape of the world. Its influence can be felt in the architecture, art, religion, astronomy, and medicine of many subsequent cultures, especially in the ancient Greek and Roman civilizations. The architectural achievements of the Egyptians, especially the construction of the pyramids, inspired the Greeks and Romans to create their own monumental structures. The concept of columns and obelisks was borrowed and adapted in various forms of classical architecture. Egyptian symbolism and style were reflected in Roman temples and public buildings, emphasizing respect for ancient knowledge and cultural heritage. The scientific achievements of the Egyptians, including the development of mathematics and astronomy, had a significant impact on the development of these sciences in Greece and beyond. Egyptian methods of timekeeping and calendar calculation, as well as their knowledge of stars and planets, formed the basis for further astronomical research in the ancient world. In medicine, the Egyptians achieved significant success, especially in the fields of surgery and pharmacology. Records of medical procedures found in Egyptian papyri testify to the advanced knowledge of the ancient Egyptians in treating diseases and injuries. This knowledge was passed on through Greek scholars such as Herodotus and Plato, who studied in Egypt and influenced the development of medicine in Europe. Ancient Egypt continues to inspire modern culture, science, and art. Images and symbols borrowed from Egyptian mythology and history regularly appear in literature, in culture, cinema, music, and even in fashion. Egyptian motifs are used in the design of jewelry, clothing, and interior items, demonstrating the enduring interest in this ancient culture. Efforts to preserve Egyptian monuments, including pyramids, temples, and tombs, are an important part of global efforts to protect cultural heritage. Conservation and restoration programs supported by international organizations such as UNESCO help protect these priceless monuments for future generations. Interest in ancient Egypt, fueled by both new archaeological discoveries and modern technologies, continues to grow. This not only allows us to preserve but also to expand our understanding of this unique civilization, as well as to explore new ways of engaging with its cultural heritage. The possibilities of virtual reality and interactive museum exhibits open up a new horizon for education and cultural exchange, offering a deeper and more intimate immersion into the world of the ancient Egyptians. Innovations in the field of archaeology and monument preservation, such as satellite archaeology and advanced dating methods, continue to reveal the mysteries of the past. These technologies not only help scientists discover lost cities and tombs, but also provide new data about the climate and social structure, even the diet of the ancient Egyptians, which in turn sheds light on the reasons for the rise and fall of this great civilization. In addition, the growing interest in reconstructing and reviving ancient Egyptian crafts, such as papyrus making, faience production, and traditional construction methods, helps preserve these ancient techniques for future generations. Overall, the legacy of ancient Egypt continues to influence the modern world in diverse and even unexpected ways. From the inspiring achievements of ancient craftsmen to the ongoing efforts to preserve and study their creations, ancient Egypt remains a living reminder that the past always matters for the present and the future, offering lessons, inspiration, and food for thought to generations of explorers, creators, and dreamers. Urine for cleaning teeth The Romans were inventive and found the most unexpected ways to use available resources. For example, urine was widely used in everyday life due to its high ammonia content, which had whitening and cleaning properties. It was used as a cleaning agent for laundry. In Roman laundries, specially trained workers, called phylones, would soak clothes, especially togas, in vats filled with aged urine, and then stomp on them with their feet. After this treatment, the fabric was rinsed in water with added ash or clay, which helped to remove any remaining grease. In addition, urine was used in leather production as well as in agriculture. It was used to fertilize the soil so that pomegranates and other plants would grow healthier and stronger. Sometimes it was also used to treat livestock, for example sheep, by pouring urine down their throats. One of the most unusual uses of urine in Rome was for dental care. Some Romans believed that rinsing the mouth made their teeth whiter, and ammonia does indeed have a whitening effect. But the idea of using urine for hygiene purposes is still surprising today. The Roman poet Cato ironically mentions a certain Ignatius in his verses, who was proud of his dazzling white smile, which he got thanks to very frequent mouth rinsing. Rare artifacts from the Titanic, an alligator leather handbag, and tiny perfume bottles that still emit a strong fragrance are just a few of the precious artifacts found during the excavation of the sunken Titanic. The location of the warehouse housing these relics is strictly classified. It is only known that it is located in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. The shelves are filled with thousands of items, from an overturned bathtub and portholes to tiny glass buttons. Thomasina Ray, the director of collections at RMS Titanic Incorporated, showed an alligator leather bag that belonged to Marion Minwell, a third-class passenger. Marion was a 64-year-old milliner who was traveling to the U.S. to see her daughter. Important documents and photographs were preserved in her bag. Her tragic fate was that she had originally booked a ticket on another ship, but ended up on the Titanic and became one of the 1,500 who perished. Among other artifacts are perfume bottles belonging to Adolf Zielfeld, a perfumer and first-class passenger who survived the disaster. The scent of the perfume can still be detected, even though it spent decades at the bottom of the ocean. The collection also includes a bottle of champagne with the drink still inside, found among a variety of kitchenware at the bottom of the ocean. Titanic was a luxurious liner, and there was a huge amount of champagne on board for the first-class passengers who enjoyed the highest level of comfort. The tableware on board reflected the class division: rough white ceramics for third class and exquisite plates with gold trim for first-class passengers. These items help recreate the atmosphere of life on board. The company RMS Titanic Inc., which is authorized to recover artifacts from the ship, recently announced its intention to retrieve the Marconi radio equipment that transmitted the distress signals. Some believe that the sunken ship is a burial site that should be left undisturbed. However, Thomasina Ray notes the importance of preserving the memory of the tragedy through these artifacts. And what do you think? Should the ship be left undisturbed, or should we try to bring it ashore? Share your opinion in the comments below the video. Crystal dagger. In the megalithic tomb of Montelirio Tholos, located in the southwestern part of Spain, archaeologists discovered a unique artifact, a dagger made of rock crystal, dating back to around 3000 BC. This 22-centimeter dagger has been preserved almost entirely, including the handle and sheath, which are made of ivory. Found in a separate chamber of the tomb, the dagger clearly held special significance for the deceased. Scientists suggest that this dagger was used for ritual purposes, since rock crystal was considered a symbol of purity and a connection to the spirit world in ancient times. Working with crystal required great skill, as it is a hard and brittle material, so such an item was extremely valuable. It is possible that the dagger served as a symbol of the owner's high status and was used in rituals related to the worship of ancestors or gods. Shamans predict disaster. In Mexico, one of the ancient pyramids used by ancient tribes for human sacrifices collapsed, raising concerns about an impending catastrophe. The descendants of the tribe that built the pyramid fear that the collapse may be a harbinger of a major disaster caused by natural forces or some other phenomenon. In the photos from the scene, you can see that part of the structure collapsed after a heavy rain that occurred recently. The downpour washed away one side of the pyramid. These pyramids were built by the ancestors of the modern Purépecha, a warlike people who once managed to defeat the Aztecs. Historians claim that the Yakata pyramids were used by the Purépecha tribe for ritual sacrifices to their main god, Curicaueri. Anthropologist Toriquiri Alvarez stated that the collapse of the pyramid is not a bad omen. Local shamans believe that even the fall of a single stone was a bad omen, and the collapse of an entire wall means an inevitable disaster. A similar phenomenon was observed before the arrival of the conquistadors. The Gobi astronaut. In 1834, in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, the famous English explorer and cartographer Charles Edwin discovered a mysterious cave in a rock. Inside the cave was a skeleton of unusually large size, almost 5 meters long, with a proportionally enlarged skull and curved ribs. Next to the skeleton were metal objects heavily corroded, but one object attracted the attention of scientists: a stone slab with a map of the starry sky and markings that did not correspond to known star systems. According to Edwin, the slab is not just an artifact, but a tool for navigation, or part of an ancient astronomical device. Interestingly, research has shown that the material of the slab contains rare terrestrial elements that are not typical for the region where the cave was found. This has led to speculation about the possible extraterrestrial origin of both the slab itself and the creature whose remains were lying nearby. Further study of the stone slab revealed that the cartographic markings on it could have been used for navigation in outer space, suggesting that the creature might have been a pilot or explorer from a distant star system. Scientists suggested that the creature's death might have resulted from the crash of its ship, parts of which could have been scattered across the desert and buried under layers of sand for centuries. This discovery remained little known due to political and scientific disputes about the origin and significance of the artifacts found. However, it continues to spark debates among scientists and adventurers seeking to uncover the mysteries of ancient civilizations. Cruentation. In the Middle Ages, there was an unusual method of determining the guilt of a murderer called cruentation. According to this method, if the murderer approached the body of their victim, the wounds on the body would begin to bleed spontaneously, which was considered a clear sign of guilt. Sometimes the procedure was made more complicated, and the suspect was brought to the body and forced to place their hands on the victim's wounds. If traces of blood appeared or other strange things happened during this, it was considered proof. This was called the judgment of God. Although cruentation seems like a mystical ritual, in reality this method sometimes actually produced results. The suspect, under intense psychological stress from touching the body, may not have handled the pressure, fear, and the sense of the inevitability of God's judgment often led the killer to lose composure and confess to the crime right on the spot. This method was part of the system of so-called ordeals, trials in which guilt was determined through divine intervention. Cruentation, although it was a superstitious practice, surprisingly often played a role in solving crimes, especially in cases where intense nervous tension let criminals down and made them give themselves away. Where did the ancient Egyptians get their gods from? Ancient Egypt continues to fascinate scholars with its mysteries, one of which is the land of Punt. Unlike the mythical Atlantis and Agartha, Punt was a real place located somewhere in East Africa. The Egyptians sent trade expeditions there, bringing back goods that one could only dream of: precious trees, gold, ivory, and aromatic resins. The first mention of Punt dates back to the 26th century BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. The expeditions continued for centuries, bringing immense wealth to Egypt. An important milestone was the construction of a canal connecting the Nile and the Red Sea during the reign of Pharaoh Senusret III, which made the route to Punt easier. The exact location of Punt is still a subject of debate among scholars. There is a theory that it was located in the area of modern Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, and Sudan, and it might have even extended as far as South Africa. Some researchers believe that Egyptian sailors might have even reached the Cape of Good Hope. Egyptian culture preserved legends about Punt, as the homeland of the gods and Egyptian ancestors. The last known expedition to Punt took place during Ramesses III's reign. After that, journeys to the land of riches ceased, and Punt gradually turned into a legend. Today, archaeological research on Punt is complicated by the political situation in the region, which makes it one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. The relationship between Egypt and Punt, as far as we know, always remained peaceful, which is a unique fact in the history of interactions between ancient civilizations. The legacy of Punt still lives on in the name of the autonomous region of Somalia, or Puntland. Post-mortem photography. The Victorian era was a time when mortality rates were extremely high, especially among children, which led to the emergence of the unusual tradition of post-mortem photography. Epidemics of cholera, typhus, and diphtheria swept across Great Britain, and in 1861, after the death of her husband, the grieving Queen Victoria made prolonged mourning fashionable. Against this backdrop, grieving parents began photographing their deceased children in an effort to preserve their memory. Photographic technology at the time was far from perfect. The process of taking a photograph required a long exposure, which caused living subjects to appear blurred. But there were no such problems with the deceased. They could be photographed calmly and in detail. In addition to photographs, people also kept locks of the deceased's hair, turning them into jewelry such as rings or lockets. Another tradition was making wax masks with the features of the deceased's face, as well as drawings and paintings with symbols of death. The demand for post-mortem portraits was high, and for photographers, this niche meant a stable income. Such photographs, often made with the most delicate and touching details, became a unique way to preserve the image of a loved one. In that era, death was truly a part of everyday life, and post-mortem photographs served as a kind of reminder of the fragility of existence. Ancient graffiti in the Sigiriya fortress are unique inscriptions found on the walls of the ancient Sigiriya fortress, located on top of a monolithic rock in the central part of Sri Lanka. These graffiti represent one of the most important collections of ancient inscriptions on the island, dating approximately from the 5th to the 8th centuries AD. They were left by visitors to the fortress, including poets, pilgrims, and travelers. On the mirror-like walls, polished to a shine, which once adorned the inner halls and corridors of the palace. The Sigiriya graffiti are poetic lines, comments, and personal impressions written in the Sinhalese language using ancient forms of script. Despite their historical value, the interpretation of the Sigiriya graffiti is a subject of debate among historians. Questions about who exactly left these inscriptions, their social status, motives, and purposes remain open. Some researchers believe that the graffiti were created by members of the upper classes of society who visited the palace. Others suggest that they might have belonged to pilgrims and merchants, indicating that the fortress was accessible to the general public. Medicines made from human flesh. Until the early 20th century, human remains were often used in medicine, and in a wide variety of forms. They were usually ground into a fine powder, which was then added to hot chocolate or made into tablets. It was believed that consuming a specific part of the body could help cure diseases in the corresponding part of the body. For example, powder made from crushed skulls was considered an effective remedy for headaches. The remains of Egyptian mummies were especially valued and widely used as a medicinal remedy. It was the high demand for mummies for medicinal purposes that led to so few of them being preserved today. The belief in the healing properties of mummy was so strong that Egyptian mummies were supplied to Europe in huge quantities, and their use was considered normal practice. The 11th century pocket computer. A British historian, Federico Gigante, discovered in an Italian museum one of the oldest astrolabes from the 11th century with inscriptions in Arabic and Hebrew. This astronomical instrument, used for measuring angles and determining the positions of stars, was an important find at the museum in Verona. This artifact is so multifunctional that by modern standards it can easily be classified as a pocket computer. Federico Gigante came across the device during her research. She was browsing the museum's online catalog and requested additional information, but she was told that the object has not been studied yet. Upon arriving at the museum, the scientists discovered not only Arabic, but also barely noticeable Hebrew inscriptions on the astrolabe, which, in her opinion, indicates scientific exchange between the Arab, Jewish, and Christian worlds over the centuries. Research has shown that the astrolabe could have been made in Al-Andalus, the Muslim region in Spain. Muslim prayers and Hebrew lines have been preserved on the instrument. This highlights its cultural and religious significance. The similarity of the discovered astrolabe to Byzantine and early European models supports the hypothesis of its Iberian origin. This unique artifact is believed to have first entered the collection of the Italian aristocrat Ludovico Moscardo in the 17th century, and later it passed to the Maniscalchi family, who in 1990 founded a museum to preserve their private collection. The stained glass windows in historic churches capture the imagination with their intricate depictions of biblical scenes and vivid colors. However, behind the creation of these works of art lies an interesting and rather unpleasant secret. To achieve the desired shades and strength of the glass, craftsmen added an unusual ingredient to the mixture: urine and sometimes even human blood. During the manufacturing process, metal oxides were mixed with urine, which helped improve the adhesion of the coloring substance to the glass during firing. This method gave stained glass a special brightness and durability. Thus, creating these centuries-old beautiful windows involved not just skilled craftsmen, but also some unexpected materials. Stained glass is not only a symbol of spiritual light and beauty, but also proof that art sometimes requires unconventional approaches and secret ingredients. Ruins of the oldest civilization underwater. In the early 2000s, a team of researchers led by the Canadian company Advanced Digital Communications made a sensational discovery off the coast of Cuba. At a depth of about 600 to 750 meters, strange structures resembling stone buildings were discovered on the ocean floor. These structures looked like organized rows of giant stone blocks, some of which had a regular rectangular shape and resembled massive walls or pyramid-like buildings. The initial results of underwater research conducted using modern sonar led to the hypothesis of a possible sunken city that may have been swallowed by the ocean tens of thousands of years ago. According to some estimates, the age of these ruins may exceed 50,000 years, which is significantly older than the earliest known civilizations, such as Sumer and ancient Egypt. This makes the possible discovery even more intriguing, as it suggests the existence of ancient and possibly highly developed cultures that science knows nothing about yet. Some scientists believe that these ruins may represent the remains of an ancient city built before the last ice age, when the sea level was significantly lower. There is a theory that this area might have been inhabited by ancient peoples who were later forced to leave their homes due to the rising sea level. This hypothesis is supported by proponents of the theory about the existence of ancient sunken continents, such as Atlantis, described in the works of Plato. Some geologists suggest that these formations may be the result of natural geological processes, such as erosion, earthquakes, and other movements of the Earth's crust. Further research and analysis of the underwater ruins off the coast of Cuba require significant resources and time. Let's hope that the authorities will find the means to study these ancient ruins. Sacsayhuaman, located on the outskirts of Cusco, Peru, is one of the most majestic and mysterious architectural centers subdued by the Incas. Although most scholars agree that the main part of this fortress was built in the 15th century, there is a theory that its foundations may have been laid long before that time. Sacsayhuaman impresses with its scale and engineering precision. Huge stone blocks, many of which weigh more than 200 tons, are fitted together with such precision that the fortress has only grown stronger over the years, withstanding numerous earthquakes that destroyed many other Incan structures. Some researchers associate Sacsayhuaman with the legendary descent of the god Viracocha from the heavens, which adds a sense of mystique to the entire structure. According to Incan mythology, Viracocha was the creator of all things and the patron of civilization, and his arrival marked the beginning of a new era of development and prosperity. The Sacsayhuaman complex includes not only military structures, but also religious and administrative buildings, which indicates its multifunctional significance in Incan culture. There are also numerous platforms within the complex which are believed to have been used for astronomical observations and ritual ceremonies. Mummy unwrapping parties. In the 18th and 19th centuries, European society was gripped by a real craze for ancient Egypt, which became known as Egyptomania. The fascination with Egypt and its ancient mysteries became so popular that mummies began to be imported into Europe as early as the 15th century, when it was believed that their ground-up remains could be a cure for many diseases. But the peak of interest in mummies came in the 19th century, greatly aided by Napoleon's Egyptian campaigns, which inspired Europeans to become fascinated with ancient artifacts. However, this curiosity about mummies was far from scientific. It was more of an eccentric form of entertainment. Victorian aristocrats began to hold so-called mummy unwrapping parties. These events became a fashionable form of entertainment. Guests would gather and enjoy drinks, and then watched as archaeologists or historians carefully unwrapped the mummy's ancient bandages. This spectacle was often accompanied by a lecture explaining the culture and rituals of ancient Egypt. These parties were popularized by the English surgeon Thomas Pettigrew, who would display a mummy for an elite audience, combining scientific enlightenment with a spectacular show. Although today such events seem creepy, for Victorians it was an exciting opportunity to experience a mysterious, little-known ancient world firsthand. Cogged stones. Amazing artifacts resembling bronze gears, similar to those previously found in Peru, were discovered in Southern California. These stone gears are known as the California cogged stones, ranging from 2 to 6 inches in diameter and up to 2 inches thick. Scientists believe they were made sometime between 6,000 and 3,500 BC. Looking at these artifacts with modern eyes, they may seem primitive, but these stones have different features, such as cups, round indentations, and teeth along the edges, as well as patterns that resemble cupcakes. Amazingly, about 15 of them have a hole in the center, often narrow on one side. Scientists have also discovered a curious anomaly. In the middle, there is a perfect square hole, which would be difficult to reproduce even with modern technology. This suggests that their ancient creators were familiar with advanced technologies. The purpose of these stone discs remains a mystery to this day. Some suggest that they were used for certain ritual purposes. But who created these stones and why remains an open question. Today, the prevailing opinion is that these gears were used as ceremonial objects, but their meaning and symbolism are still up for discussion. The connection between ancient Egypt and the Bible. The Papyrus of Ipuwer, also known as the Admonitions of Ipuwer, is an ancient Egyptian text written on papyrus, which is currently kept in the Leiden Museum in the Netherlands. This document dates back to the end of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, around 1800 BC, although the copy of the papyrus may have been created much later. The papyrus is written in the form of a poetic monologue in which the narrator, Ipuwer, describes the catastrophic disasters that struck Egypt. The text tells of social unrest, natural disasters, mass famine, and the destruction of public order, making it a unique source for understanding ancient Egyptian views on crises and chaos. Ancient Egypt. One of the mysteries of the Ipuwer papyrus is its possible connection to real historical events. Some researchers believe that the papyrus does not describe specific events, but rather a literary interpretation of general ideas about chaos and social disorder characteristic of Egyptian thought. At the same time, the content of the text has led to hypotheses that it may reflect a real historical upheaval, possibly related to the decline of the Middle Kingdom or other catastrophes. Interest in the Ipuwer papyrus also arose because of its parallels with the biblical plagues of Egypt described in the book of Exodus. The descriptions of blood turning the river red, darkness, and mass death resonate in both texts. Nevertheless, the exact connection between the Ipuwer papyrus and the biblical events remains controversial, as there is no convincing evidence of a direct historical link. The Little Ice Age. Genghis Khan, known for his brutality and for creating one of the largest empires in history, unexpectedly influenced the planet's climate. The military campaigns of the Mongol leader led to the killing of huge numbers of people and the devastation of vast territories. As a result, when these lands were left without people, forests began to actively recover and once again cover vast areas. The regenerated forests began to absorb a significant amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which led to a temporary cooling of the climate, the so-called Little Ice Age effect. In essence, the actions of Genghis Khan indirectly contributed to the reduction of CO2 levels in the atmosphere, although his goal was clearly not to improve the environment. The impact of his conquests on nature turned out to be unexpected, and he inadvertently became one of the first figures in history to benefit the climate. This story is a rare case when tragic historical events had a positive impact on the climate of our planet. Hidden burial chamber. While cleaning a 3,900-year-old tomb in Egypt, archaeologists discovered a hidden burial chamber. The work was carried out in the ancient tomb of Jefai Hapi in Ashut. According to a statement from the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, a group of Egyptian and German archaeologists discovered the chamber when they followed a shaft down to a depth of about 15 meters. Inside the small rectangular chamber, archaeologists found two richly decorated wooden sarcophagi nested inside each other. They belonged to a woman named Edi, the only daughter of Jefai Hapi, an important nomarch of the Asyut province who lived around 1900 BC. The photographs show a well-preserved, colorful sarcophagus. However, the chamber was robbed in ancient times, the mummy was damaged, and the canopic jars were destroyed. Despite this, archaeologists found some parts of Edi's remains, the sarcophagus lid, and carved figurines. According to preliminary analysis, Edi died young, probably before the age of 40, and suffered from a congenital foot defect. The tomb of Jefai Hapi, carved into the rock, is considered the largest burial site of the Middle Kingdom, not the largest in the world. Pandora viruses. In July 2013, scientists in Paris presented results that shed light on a completely new class of microorganisms, which were named Pandora viruses. This discovery turned out to be especially important because the genetic material of these viruses is 94% different from anything previously known to science. Such a unique structure of their genome became one of the foundations supporting the panspermia hypothesis, according to which life could have been brought to Earth from outer space. Pandora viruses not only expand our understanding of microbiology, but also raise questions about the origin and evolution of viruses as a whole. They belong to giant viruses, which can be seen under a regular microscope, and interestingly, they have rather complex genomes that allow them to perform unique functions that were previously thought impossible for viruses. Pandora viruses not only demonstrate unusual abilities for survival and adaptation, but they may also play a key role in understanding the mechanisms of genetic material transfer between different species. Nowadays, opening Pandora's box has become a common phrase, meaning to take an action with irreversible consequences that cannot be undone. That's where this virus got its name from. Gibbeting, or hanging in a cage. One of the most brutal forms of punishment in history was gibbeting, hanging a criminal in an iron cage for public display. The condemned person was left hanging in the cage, where he slowly died from hunger, thirst, and exhausting conditions. This agonizing punishment took place publicly and attracted crowds of onlookers, for whom the execution became a kind of grim spectacle. Sometimes the condemned person was hung up already dead, so that his remains would serve as a frightening reminder of the punishment for serious crimes. Gibbeting not only punished the criminal, but also aimed to instill fear and deter people from breaking the law. Such cages were often set up at crossroads or at the entrance to a city, so that anyone passing by could see what might await them if they dared to commit a crime. People who lived near places where these gruesome living corpses were displayed suffered from the unbearable smell and sight of decomposing bodies. This cruel practice became widespread in Europe and North America. Gibbeting was abolished by the 19th century, but it left a grim mark on the history of justice and became a symbol of extreme forms of punishment in the past. Engineering is not only years in the history of justice and became a symbol of extreme forms of punishment in the past. An engineering marvel in Egypt. And once again, ancient Egypt continues to amaze modern researchers. This time, an amazing tunnel was discovered under a temple in the ancient city of Toposiris Magna, which experts call a geometric marvel. The tunnel was found at a depth of 13 meters. Its length is 1,305 meters, and its height is about 2 meters. It is carved in sandstone, and its design resembles the famous Eupalinian tunnel on the Greek island of Samos, which is considered an engineering marvel. The exact name of the tunnel is still unknown, but some of its sections are flooded with water. Archaeologist Martinez, who has been searching for the lost tomb of Cleopatra VII since 2004, believes that the tunnel could lead to important discoveries. Taposiris Magna was founded around 280 BC by Ptolemy II, one of Cleopatra's ancestors. Archaeologists believe that the temple was dedicated to Osiris and Isis, deities with whom Cleopatra was closely associated. The team also plans to explore the Mediterranean Sea because a series of earthquakes between 320 and 1303 caused part of the temple to collapse into the water. Earlier in my videos, I talked about how tunnels connecting Lake Mariut to the Mediterranean Sea were discovered. Time is relative. You've probably heard the popular fact that's often mentioned on the internet. Cleopatra lived closer in time to the moon landing than to the construction of the pyramids. And that's actually true. Cleopatra VII, the last queen of Egypt from the Ptolemaic dynasty, lived from 69 to 30 BC. Meanwhile, the construction of the Pyramid of Djoser began around 2667 BC, and the first moon landing took place in 1969. The difference in time is impressive, but there's an even more amazing fact. During the construction of the Egyptian pyramids, real mammoths were still roaming the earth, not in Egypt, but on remote Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean. The last mammoths went extinct around 1355-1337 BC during Tutankhamun's reign in Egypt. 1355-1337 BC, when the famous pharaoh Tutankhamun ruled in Egypt. The history of dinosaurs is no less interesting. For example, Tyrannosaurus rex, known to everyone as one of the greatest predators, lived closer to our time than to the Stegosaurus, which is often depicted alongside it in movies and books. Stegosaurus disappeared about 144 million years ago, while Tyrannosaurus appeared much later, around 67 million years ago. These historical comparisons are striking and remind us that our usual associations about ancient times can be misleading. The living doll. In 1877, Thomas Edison created something unique and unusual, a talking doll, which became one of his most extraordinary inventions. This doll, weighing less than 2 kilograms, with a porcelain head and wooden limbs, concealed a miniature version of a phonograph inside, which could play sound when the handle was turned. But instead of becoming a charming amusement, it caused many people to feel uneasy because of its unusual feature. Edison presented his invention as the latest electrical novelty, capable of speaking phrases or singing songs, thanks to the phonograph built into its body. A team of women was brought in to record various phrases and melodies. But unfortunately, the dolls turned out to be less durable than expected and couldn't withstand active children's play, which often led to the mechanism breaking. In 1889, Edison faced complaints about the fragility of the wax cylinders used, which confirmed the need to improve the design to increase its reliability. Nevertheless, the production turned out to be unprofitable, and by 1890 the costs exceeded $50,000, which forced the Edison Phonograph Toy Manufacturing Company to stop producing these dolls. Edison's failure in this area did not affect public opinion in any way, since even with the high cost of the dolls, many people would have preferred to spend their money on other toys. Interestingly, the frightening image of the talking doll may have inspired many horror stories and creepypastas, where sinister dolls became the central characters. The Chinese tried an ancient drink. In ancient tombs in China's Shanxi province, a tightly sealed bronze vessel was found. Researchers discovered about 300 ml of liquid inside, which turned out to be the remains of a fermented alcoholic beverage that is 2,300 years old. Two people who tasted this liquid noted its metallic taste. People learned to make fermented drinks back in ancient times. The earliest evidence of this was found in the Reykjavik cave in Israel, where about 13,000 years ago, people made beer from grains. In the Neolithic era, alcoholic beverages began to be produced in the Middle East and China using millet and rice. In a bronze vessel measuring 30.5 centimeters in height and 21.5 centimeters in diameter, they found 300 ml of a clear liquid, or more precisely, a fermented alcoholic beverage that was used as a burial offering. Researchers found 4 types of starch granules in the liquid: millet, foxtail millet, and Job's tears, legumes, wheat, barley, and rice. In addition, they identified organisms involved in fermentation, including mold fungi of the Aspergillus genus and baker's yeast. According to scientists, the drink resembled modern yellow wine, huangju. Infanticide, or rituals of burying infants in the homes of the Iberians, who lived on the Iberian Peninsula during the Iron Age, have long raised questions even among scientists. Various theories were suggested, ranging from infanticide to rituals. However, a recent study helped to understand the nature of these burials. Researchers concluded that the infants most likely died of natural causes, due to premature birth or complications during delivery, rather than as a result of ritual actions. This conclusion was reached through the analysis of children's teeth using advanced technologies such as microscopy and synchrotron radiation. The study examined the remains of 45 infants, and the methods of optical microscopy and microfluorescence helped determine the moments of birth and death with high accuracy. The key factor was the discovery of the neonatal line in the teeth, which forms around the time of birth. This data allowed scientists to prove that many infants died immediately after birth due to health conditions. The Iberians usually practiced cremation, so the discovery of uncremated newborns in living quarters previously caused controversy. The strange desires of Dr. Gottfried Knoche. Sometimes there is only a thin line between genius and madness. It seems that talent alone is clearly not enough to bring brilliant ideas to life. Something more is required, like a unique way of thinking. Here is a story that proves it. In 1813, in the German town of Halberstadt, Gottfried Knoche was born. He became famous for his unique invention of a special embalming fluid, with which he managed to mummify dozens of bodies, including his own. After moving from Germany to Venezuela, in 1840, Knoche settled in La Guaira, in the north of the country, where he soon became part of the local community and founded the San Juan de Dios Hospital. During his years of work from 1854 to 1856, he earned a reputation as a benefactor, selflessly caring for the poor and fighting against cholera, which was devastating the region. Knoche stood out for his keen interest in both life and the aesthetics of death. He was obsessed with the idea of overcoming the inevitable decomposition of bodies after death, and began experimenting with otherwise unused bodies, a practice that went far beyond the usual medical research of that time. As a result of Knoche's efforts, a formula for a liquid was developed that allowed bodies to be preserved in an unchanged state. Foreseeing his own death, Knoche made sure that his assistant, Amalie Weismann, whom the locals called the Witch of Avella, prepared the liquid for his body. There is a legend that he even asked her to inject the serum into his living body before locking himself in the mausoleum forever. Over time, Knoche's mausoleum and his Buena Vista estate turned into ruins, but to this day they keep the secrets of their mummified inhabitants, among whom are some of Venezuela's most famous figures. This place attracts both medical students and adventurers, although the exact composition of Knoche's embalming fluid remains unknown. This story reminds us how a great mind can lead to unusual, sometimes frightening, discoveries. And where do you think the line between genius and madness is? Share your thoughts in the comments. The Doomsday Document. According to several sources, there is a secret document in the Vatican about the end of the world, containing prophecies about the fate of humanity. This document is said to describe key events of the 20th century, including world wars and global conflicts. Many believe that the prophecy not only explains the causes of past disasters, but also contains predictions for the future that concern the very structure of society and the dangers awaiting humanity. The document is reportedly kept in the Vatican Apostolic Archive, access to which is restricted to a limited circle of people. It is believed that the text is too grim and raises serious concerns, which is why the Church keeps it hidden from the general public, to avoid causing mass panic and to prevent destabilization. The theory about the existence of a prophecy concerning the end of the world is supported by stories about certain popes who, after becoming familiar with its contents, became somber and often spoke about the need to strengthen faith and unity in the face of future trials. Officially, the Vatican neither confirms nor denies the existence of the prophecy. However, rumors about its contents have given rise to numerous theories related to global cataclysms, the collapse of states, and even possible natural disasters. Some investigators suggest that the prophecy is connected to the so-called Third Secret of Fatima, which, according to believers, also speaks about the end of the world, but was only partially revealed. The mysterious document remains one of the most frightening and chilling secrets of the Vatican. Some might think it's just another legend, but let's think logically. History repeats itself and follows certain patterns. The Vatican Archive holds a huge number of books throughout our history. These books and manuscripts describe events over the past hundreds and even thousands of years. And if you study them, analyze them, and find those very patterns, then with a high degree of probability, you can predict future events quite accurately. So the existence of a document about the end of the world is more likely truth than legend. What do you think? Write your opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching until the end. Goodbye, everyone.